day after day I wrote and I wrote, and by the end of the 3 months I had the beginning of an introduction, and then the very last day I wrote this piece, just out of what was happening in the moment. So I feel like a tomato seedling. I feel like a tomato seedling emerging from the earth after many days in the damp darkness of the ground of myself. Those uncounted days are an eternity for a tomato seed. The unfamiliar tickling of moisture calls to something inside me, the deep ache of longing for something unimaginable. All I know of me is flat and round, a disk of unremarkable color. Everything else is a scarlet dream, a picture once glimpsed, a whispered fragment of a story. Then the terror and wonder starts. The wet coolness of the earth begins to dissolve me. Here are urges I have never felt. I try to resist but am powerless. I can't hold myself together. Saying my last prayers, I allow myself to be split open. Breaking apart, I discover anew that I am not what I thought. I feel myself going up and down at the same time. The vertical urge toward a power above appears as a single stem whose function is as of yet hidden from me. And in the other direction is a gentler, finer urge downward. Little white threads spreading quietly deeper into the soul to receive necessary nourishment from this unknowing darkness. And now breaking ground, a tender stalk with a few small leaves. Expecting immediate tomatoes, I am disappointed with my meager green showing. Yet even here the juicy crimson globes of the future may be hiding, invisible, biding their time, waiting to manifest. Letting the seedling be the seedling, myself be myself, is the work of the moment. To abandon the seedling for not being the tomato is to mistake the timing of things. The roots are these days of writing and reflecting, giving myself permission again and again to wander without knowing the destination. This seems to be the only path with aliveness. My notebooks bulge with pages of wonderings and noticings, with shufflings and shapings of now familiar ideas and frameworks. They look nothing like a book. But there is some form that I sense emerging, some sprouts that are poking their tender heads through the earth, promising some as yet unformed and delicious fruit. I pray for the faith and determination to keep walking ahead, to keep doing that which I do not know how to do. So I have to say it's quite a thing. I wrote this out of a real desperation. And I really had no idea at that point that this would be the book. I still wanted to write something that was clear and made sense. But as I tried to write something that was clear and made sense, I realized that it was kind of boring. That we all already know what we should do. Yeah, follow your breath, be in the present moment, all of that stuff we've all heard. And I realized that the real issue is, how do we live what we know? All of us have some dream. All of us have something that calls to us. And the question is, how do we follow that? How do we listen? How do we trust that that could be enough? So I was not very trusting. But eventually the other book, I did 17 drafts of the first chapter of the other book, and still it was not very interesting. So I read a passage. I called some people together And I read actually what I'm going to read next, which is a piece I call Spiraling Toward God. And you'll notice that a lot of these entries are about the natural world, about walking in the temple gardens here, about tomatoes and morning glories and things like that. So it's quite wonderful that we're here in this lovely setting. It's called Spiraling Toward God. Yesterday I made my daily pilgrimage to my morning glory seedlings in the planters under the bare pergola on the access ramp. A week and a half ago, I carefully ran 10 lines of brown twine from a horizontal wire near the planters to the top of the pergola. My plan was that each of the 10 morning glory plants would climb up one of the strings. The seedlings have been getting nearly big enough to train onto these strings. I lean the taller ones over toward the appropriate string, like bringing a newborn to her mother's breast. But you can't really teach a baby to suck on the breast, but you can awaken his inborn knowing. The infants without this sucking knowledge inscribed in their DNA did not survive to pass on their genes. So I've been bringing the sprouting runners over to touch the screen, hoping they will get the idea. Like how gently rubbing the baby's cheek makes her turn her head and look for the breast. Most days when I've gone back to check, the plants have righted themselves, spurring the string support for the vertical free form. But yesterday, 2 of them finally got the idea. They had each made one spiral trip around the string and were headed for the top. I was unreasonably proud and delighted to see the results of my careful planning and coaxing, and I was amazed by the intelligence of these plants. How was this rising wisdom contained in the small round seed I planted in the damp soil a month ago? I suppose the leaves themselves are miracle enough, but this capacity to sense the string and to begin the climb, a dumb intelligence beyond understanding. I went out again this morning to look. Now there are 3 beginning to climb, and 2 have made several trips around, now spiraling upward. And I pray that our lives too may be a spiraling upward in ways beyond our knowing. Is there a string that is set for each of us that run towards God, toward the source of our lives? I suspect that the aliveness of our lives is the string. We can't really know what the string is, just like I don't think the morning glory has any conception of string or pergola, or David is such a clever gardener. But the growing tip of the plant knows enough to curl around whatever it meets. I pray that I have the same cellular intelligence and can respond appropriately when the universe gently rubs my cheek so that I can turn toward what nourishes me.